Part of the fallout from this past year of COVID-19 restrictions has been the lack of much travel, especially vacation travel, although I did read that RV sales have been way up this past year. Travel to places outside of our United States was practically non-existent. And so for me, I love to travel. Memories of the places that I had visited in the past, well, those memories had to suffice, at least for now. And that reminiscing actually occurred last Wednesday with some friends I was with regarding a trip that we had taken to one of the most beautiful places I have ever seen in the world. That was Austria and the Austrian Alps. It was actually my first time traveling to the Alps, and I have to tell you what an experience it was. I had seen pictures of those majestic mountains, and of course I had seen the Olympics in Innsbruck on television, but I had never seen those mountains in person. The biggest challenge for me, that I was the one that was chosen to drive everywhere, and it was not easy to keep my eyes on the road 100% of the time. There were plenty of times that we had the opportunity to walk around Innsbruck and in the countryside, in and around the mountains. The problem is they are just so beautiful, so striking, so majestic, and so unlike anything that we have here in Minnesota that it actually became dangerous to my health. Nothing in Europe is made for handicapped accessibility, which means that there are always going to be some sort of obstacles in your way. And it's so hard not to have your eyes drawn upwards to the immensity and the beauty of those Alps, those grand and glorious, jagged, snow-covered peaks. The problem is, the more that you keep looking up into those mountains while driving or walking, if you don't eventually look down, the danger factor increases dramatically. If you do not eventually look down, not only to see where you are going and how you're getting there, there is sure to be a scraped knee, a bruised elbow, perhaps even a broken wrist, or when driving, an unintended accident. Now don't worry, I didn't get into an accident, but it can certainly be a rude awakening for those who cannot escape the temptation to keep fixing one's gaze up above. Surely the hiking or the street below one's feet is nowhere as beautiful as what draws one's eyes upwards, up to the heavens. But experience, which sometimes bring pain, that has a way of teaching some important lessons in our lives. It would be nice if the two men dressed in white who made their appearance to those disciples in today's reading from the Acts of the Apostles would also appear to us during those times when we only have our gaze going upwards to what is above. Their question to the disciples, I think, is a question that all of us could benefit from. Why are you standing there looking up at the sky? I think it was a question that brought those disciples back to earth after having witnessed everything they did, the Lord's resurrection, all those resurrection appearances, and then finally that great ascension into the heavens. Sure, they were amazed at everything that had happened. Naturally, their eyes were fixed on what was above, on the beauty that had just taken place. And naturally, they would have stayed like that for a long while unless something or someone called them back to their earthly existence. Having their eyes fixed on the beauty of the ascension, it certainly was a good thing. It was a sign that God's glory was among them. It was a sign reminding them of the reward of heaven that awaits all who believe. However, they could not stay there just staring up forever. The message that they received actually reminded them of where they were and the lives they needed to continue to live here on this earth, even if it might not have been as beautiful as what their eyes had just experienced. And I think this is a reminder, it's a reality for all of us, not only for those who risk the chance of tripping while looking at the beautiful Alps of Austria, but all of us throughout this entire world of ours. You see, my friends, the pathways, the streets below our feet are actually calling us, just as those two dressed in white called out to the disciples. The streets here in Duluth, in our own lives, call to us. They're saying, "Why are you staring up above at the sky? We are down here," they say. "We are down here at your feet. You need to notice us too. Otherwise, you may be stumbling along the way. Even if we're not as beautiful as what is above, you must look down and take notice of what's happening here." And my dear friends, those are the people who belong to the voices in our streets. Those are the poor. Those are the marginalized, the suffering, the sick, the people who live in war-torn parts of the world. They are people living in hunger and disease-infected regions and countries in our world. They are those who are recovering from natural disasters. They are those who are mourning the death of loved ones or of families that have broken apart. They are the unborn in our own nation. There are countless voices calling out to teach every one of us, not just to look up, but to look down and to notice and to see what is going on around us. And then, my friends, to do something about it as we make our way to the beauty of our heavenly home. Today's feast, it naturally draws our attention to what is above. That very act of ascending draws us upwardly. Thanks be to God that we have our readings and our celebration today, though, that also bring us back to earth. As we celebrate this feast of Jesus Christ, who, as the letter of to the Ephesians reminds us, he put all things beneath his feet. Let us also give thanks to Christ for the example he gave us to look down and to notice who we are, where we are, and not only where we are going. So the next time we find ourselves with eyes fixed on what looks heavenly, whether it's the beauty of Lake Superior and its North Shore in Minnesota, or the clouds in the skies, or mountains somewhere else, hopefully we will also be reminded that we cannot continue to look at those forever, but we also must look at the world around us and the people that we share it with. For we have all been placed and live together beneath the feet of Jesus Christ, whose ascension into heaven we celebrate today, but who also calls us to recognize the needs of our brothers and sisters who also are at our feet.